Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Dan here, and it's been quite some time since I've actually done another video, but here we are, the review for the KV-3, the Tier 7 Russian heavy tank, opposite of the IS. So, this review is basically going to show off the KV-3, its weaknesses, its advantages, and just about everything else in between. So, first things first, the KV-3 is a Tier 7 Russian heavy tank. It has 1,400 hit points, roughly 170 more so than the fully upgraded IS. Stock, it has 1,300. So it starts out with a considerable health pool advantage. It is an extremely heavy tank. If I remember correctly, it is approximately 20. Yes, it is about 20 tons heavier than the IS. So maneuverability wise, this thing is not very maneuverable at all. 750 horsepower engine, max speed of 32 kilometers an hour. This is kind of hard to reach unless you're going straight and not going uphill at all. You could reach this. This is something you can actually reach on like some tanks, but the thing is that it's hard to get this because going in a straight line on flat terrain is something that you don't usually do. Traverse speed is pretty bad. Actually, that's really bad. Now, this is where you start looking at the KV-3 at its armor standpoint. So, it's got 120 hull armor on the front, 130 for the turret, 90 and 90 for the hull, and 115 and then another 115 for the sides and rear. So, it's reasonably well armored for its tier compared to, for instance, the IS, which the turret armor on the fully upgraded one is slightly better than 100, but either way, this does have considerably better armor all around. Front armor on the hull is the same, but this has more of it all around. So, major comparisons, I can't really do this because I do not have the IS. So some of these statistics aren't going to be the same, but as you can see, some of the raw stats like the chop speed and traverse speed are significantly better. So they do have these same guns, so if you have gone on to the IS, the majority of the guns on this tank are already going to be researched. So let's actually get into some of the more important parts to this tank. You may have noticed also that I have gotten 2 marks of excellence on this tank. A lot of people say that this isn't a very good machine. Maybe compared to the IS, it isn't as nice, but I certainly didn't really have a problem with it. I thought it was an alright tank, and so that's just my personal opinion. It has 6 crew members. We'll cover what they're going to have in a minute. Research. So, you're going to come off of the T-150. Now, before you get to the KV-3, the thing that makes this tank any good at all is this top gun over here, the 107mm ZIS-6. This is what you're going to be using to grind out the KV-3. If you don't get this, and you get to the KV-3, you're going to be stuck with an 85mm gun that you could get on the KV-1, or you could be stuck with basically the same thing. So this is what you're going to start out with. So definitely on the T-150, you're going to want to get this thing before you get to the KV-3, because you don't need to get it in order to research the tank, but I will fully recommend you get this gun, because 167mm of penetration and 300 damage is significantly better than 120 and 160. So let's talk about the KV-3 stock. It is really, really slow. If I remember correctly, you're not going to have this. The only reason why I had it at the start was because I already had the SU-101. IS, same thing here. Most of the stuff is shared between the two, but I believe if you start out on this tank, yep, KV-1. So this is where you're going to get this radio from. You're going to get this radio. so you don't have to use this stock one. 440 signal range, that's not, I mean, it's alright. I don't really, no one's like, oh, the signal range is what makes or breaks a tank. Not really, it's not that important. Engines, I got this one off of the SU-152, or you could get it from the KV-1S or the IS, but otherwise you're going to be stuck with this one right here, the 600 horsepower engine. And this thing definitely likes having a better engine. The 750 and the 600, they're going to have a noticeable difference. Tracks, obviously, you're not going to have those at the start. So, what you're going to need to do is, first off, you're going to need, you basically are going to want to get the tracks, and, well, the suspension, and the engine first, to make this thing at least somewhat more bearable whenever you're trying to move around. The next thing you're going to need to do is get the turret, because although this gun was alright on the T-150, it's not as good up here when you're dealing with tanks that have over 200 millimeters of penetration and are starting to get really good armor. So you're going to get the turret, and then you have two options from this point. You can either go down the 122 millimeter gun cannon selection, which I have done, or you could go for the 100 millimeter. I tried out the 100 millimeter, it wasn't really my thing, so instead I just progressed down to get the 122 millimeter D25T cannon. It's the average 122 millimeter gun for the Russian tanks at this tier. 4.88 rounds per minute, 175 millimeters of penetration, 390 alpha damage, accuracy, it's not that good, aiming time is rather poor. This translates to, I believe, with a gun rammer and a full 100% crew, I think this translated to about 11 seconds, something like that. So, reload speed, I mean, it's alright. You can deal with it. And although some tanks at this tier are going to have around 200 millimeters of penetration, you can work with 175. I know I have with several tanks. So you can make it work. It's just you're going to need to know how to shoot for weak spots, and the accuracy is not that good. But if you're getting up up and close to shoot at people, then it doesn't really matter. So this is definitely more of a brawling tank, but it prefers side scraping. I mean, most heavy tanks, unless they have really bad armor on the sides, you're probably going to want to be side scraping with them, because unlike the IS, it is not very maneuverable whatsoever, so it doesn't like getting circled. So down to the equipment I've fitted, I've only thrown on large caliber gun rammer. I didn't really see a need for anything else. Ammunition, just kind of my standard loadout, the APCR for if I find myself against some considerably difficult targets. Same with the HE, or if I'm finding myself against like extremely low armored enemies, like for instance Hellcats. But usually you're going to want a large amount of APs, just a regular AP. The consumables, just my standard things I usually mount: a small repair kit, small first aid kit, and fire extinguisher. This is probably one of the greatest things I've found to be a nuisance about this tank, is the engine doesn't have a lot of hit points, so getting shot has a tendency, well, same with the fuel tanks, getting shot in this area of the tank, you will notice fires quite often. So I think that's the single greatest weakness, other than the maneuverability, I've found about this tank. It's just, it does not like getting shot in the rear, because it will be set on fire really easily. And being set on fire in an already slow tank is going to make this thing a lumbering, basically useless tank. I mean, getting set on fire in the first place just ruins a tank. So fire extinguisher, definitely. If you can get an automatic one, if you've got the money to do it, I fully recommend you do that. But if you're like me and you don't want to fork over gold or a lot of credits to do it, just the regular one will be fine. So we've gone over the equipment mounted and the shells and all that fun stuff. Now to get onto what I've chosen for the crew. I'm usually a fan of Sixth Sense just because being able to tell whenever you've been spotted is something usually very helpful, especially considering this is a very slow tank and it likes to know whenever it's been spotted, so it can kind of work out where it needs to angle its armor so that way it can effectively use it. So Sixth Sense, I always put Deadeye on my gunner. It's completely up to you what you want to put on your gunner. I just like being able to have that extra chance of damaging or critically taking out my enemies, so I usually throw that on. These two, you can basically choose whatever you want. For the driver, I just chose Smooth Ride, being able to aim more accurately while you're on the move. It's something nice to be able to have, especially whenever this thing is slow to begin with, and the aiming time is not too good anyway. And then you kind of have your choice here. You're definitely going to want repairs because you're going to spend a lot of time being stuck when people blow off your tracks while you're side scraping. Best to get those things worked out as quickly as possible so you don't have to waste your repair kit on your tracks. But what you're also going to want to have is firefighting. Just because, as I've said, this thing has a tendency to be set on fire really quickly. For the driver, you could also potentially go for preventative maintenance. In fact, that's probably what I'm going to switch out the Smooth Ride for once I reach 100. Just so that way fires are less likely going to happen. Just a suggestion. So, yeah, this is pretty much the garage review of the tank. I'm going to move on to the replay in which I will show off kind of how this thing works. And if I remember correctly, this is the replay where I got the second mark of excellence in. So I'll see you guys there. Alright, so we're back. So this was in the final few battles where I was trying to work up to the second mark of excellence. I spent a very long time trying to get it, just because this was the one tank that I got really close to doing it, and I just felt the need that I basically had to do it. So, El Haluf, nothing too special, just, you know, it's El Haluf. I'm going to use the standard heavy tank tactic of just driving straight forward and parking right up in A1, kind of that region, and trying to effectively put shots into anyone who tries to flank us. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. Speed this up. Well, actually, I'm going to start out just by showing you how... I mean, I'm going downhill right now, so hitting the top speed wasn't too difficult. But when this thing starts going uphill, you're going to see how slow it is. And, you know, kind of get a feel for, if you're trying to go down this line, what driving this thing is going to be like. So, just driving along, and I'm just going to speed it up a little because the action itself obviously isn't going to start until I get to the position I'm looking for. So I wasn't feeling anything, you know, like anything special was going to happen in this game. From what this medium tank driver right here, the VK, never mind, 30.02, what he said was that this was a 29% chance to win. So I obviously don't have XVM, so I don't know exactly what it was. But right there was a good example of my luck driving this thing. I had insanely good luck driving it for some reason. I usually don't... Firing on the move isn't something that usually works out for me, even though I have the Smooth Ride. And I just usually get extremely high penetration rolls, damage rolls. I just am overall lucky with this tank. No idea why. Take a shot there from one of their medium tanks. Bounce a shot from the KV-85. Take a shot. No idea what tank that was. The enemy tanks are focusing on the ELC, which they have completely ripped apart, leaving me the chance to get into a side-scraping position, so as they come around the corner, I can rip them apart. KV-2, no idea what he was trying to do there. Took him down. Pulling back into cover. No idea what gun he's using. I'm guessing it'd be the 100mm or less. So I've already taken down one tank. Shoot him. Set him on fire. There is my second kill. I had no idea their KV-3 was there. He missed. Shot actually didn't go through. Kind of upsetting, but oh well. He is shooting at someone behind me. Bounce a shot there. And sitting here while my reload is finished. Bounce another shot. So as you can see here, the armor is effective if you can angle it and side scrape. Obviously driving right around the corner, like what this guy behind me is trying to do, basically giving them a nice side shot, is not what you want to do. He was not using the top gun. He was using either the 107 Zis gun that you would get off the T-150, or the 100mm that you would get on the opposing line, basically. Take another hit there. I probably should have tried side scraping, but I am letting my friend in the medium tank either take the next shot or finish him off. He finishes him off, and basically by myself I held this entire corner. I mean, I did have some assistance specifically from that medium tank. I'm kind of glad he was there, because otherwise I probably could have died if I came back around to fight that IS, and I don't like losing, basically. So 3 kills, and I actually managed in that just short little period of time, did over 3,000 damage. In fact, this was the most damage I did in this tank, and as you can see right there, the VK just said not bad guys for a 29%. So that's what leads me to believe that we probably, okay, well 26. Yeah, so we butchered this enemy team. No idea if that was really what it was going to be. And that's basically it for me. Here you can kind of see how slow this tank is. By the time I actually get to this position, everyone has already moved up and picked off the remaining few tanks. So I finished this game with 3 kills and approximately 3,000 damage done. So not that bad at all. So that is basically how you would want to play the KV-3. Obviously it would prefer being at a city match, just because side scraping is a little bit easier then, because you have the nice tight corners and whatnot to use. With the 175mm of penetration with the standard rounds, you're definitely going to want to be able to shoot for weak spots, especially on higher tier vehicles. If you're top tier in this tank, you should expect to do relatively well if you just kind of follow the standard heavy tank driving methods, and maybe not expect to do so well if you're bottom tier, like against tier 9s, because that's whenever this tank, it's basically major flaws like low penetration, low maneuverability really start to show. So expect to do well in tier 7 matches. Do not expect to do so well when you're bottom tier or mid tier. So anyway, I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and if you have any suggestions or just replays or whatever you want me to show off, because I am willing to do that kind of thing, send me a link or whatever. I mean, it doesn't really matter, and I would be willing to showcase them. If not, well, I'll just see you guys next time. Take care.